This video is sponsored by Audible.
Hello Internet, Taliesin here, and today we are talking Dragonflight and why it's bad. Oh no, hang on, that doesn't sound right. Oh no, I meant the big bad, because there are two types of WoW expansion. Those where the main antagonist and eventual final boss of the whole thing is front and center and known from the very start, and those where we as players are kind of kept guessing as to who the epic climactic encounter of the story will be against, often up until the last patch. And Dragonflight is absolutely in that second category, because we don't know, we have no idea. Although Ian Hazacostas has said in a recent interview with Mr. GM that...
Will we know the final boss by the end of the Dragonflight 10.0 story, or is it still going to be...
I think by the end of 10.0, I think you'll have a very good sense.
Meaning that we have an entire patch to have fun speculating who that big bad might be. And with the alpha now into its middle phases, we've seen enough of this game and setting and characters to have plenty of ideas. So join us as we rate the candidates who might just be the final boss of World of Warcraft Dragonflight. Okay, go, 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 go. Galakrond. In the frozen wastes of Northrend, within the great dragon burial ground known as Dragonblight, lies the remains of the largest known dragon ever to live, Galakrond. Once only known as the father of dragons, it was for many years believed that the Titans used Galakrond to create the dragon aspects. However, all of this changed with the Richard Knack novel Dawn of the Aspects, where established lore was retconned. I blame Steve Denuza. And we finally learned the truth. Dragon history time, fam. Long ago, when the world was still new and all dragons were still barely evolved proto-drakes, one began to grow larger than all of the others, Galakrond. At first, everyone assumed this was because Galakrond was a total dragon chad, but it soon became clear his growth spurt was down to him eating his fellow proto-drakes, consuming their life essence before throwing them up again. And it was this cannibalization that seemed to make him grow so much in size. If that wasn't enough, the proto-drakes that Galakrond vomited up seemed to be infected with some version of a plague of undeath. They became mindless zombies whose bite could infect healthy proto-drakes, spreading the same undeath to them. And the more Galakrond ate, the more he grew, but also the more he transformed. He became mutated in horrible ways, with extra limbs, wings, and even eyes growing all across his body. Realizing that something had to be done about the giant drake-eating, undead drake-vomiting super mutant mega monster, who also, by the way, bit off Titan Keeper Tyr's hand, 5 proto-drakes who were brave and strong and best friends in the whole world teamed up to take down Galakrond in an epic confrontation in what would later be known as Dragonblight, winning the day with their super genius plan of stuffing a massive rock in his mouth. The tenacity of these 5 proto-drakes so impressed Tyr that he convinced the other keepers they should be granted powers and made into guardians of Azeroth. And lo, Alex Straza, Nozdormu, Ysera, Malagos, and Neltharion, not even a little bit, became the dragon aspects, and the rest is history. I mean, all the previous stuff was history as well, but you get it. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Taliesin, I feel like the chances of Galakrond being the final boss of Dragonflight are probably quite slim, considering that he's been dead for over 10,000 years, and honestly, that's a good point. For him to be any kind of threat at all, then we'd really need someone to resurrect him, right? Well, and Redbot spoilerbot for this bit, okay, but someone quite important has appeared on the Dragonflight Alpha, Rafaam. Now, if you've never heard of him before, that's because up until now, Rafaam has only ever appeared in Hearthstone, where he is the main antagonist of the League of Explorers expansion. Yeah, I know, right? League of Explorers, like the Explorers League, one of the 2 groups who will take us into Dragonflight. Anyway, Rafaam has been found in Dragonflight, making this his first official World of Warcraft appearance. And the most interesting thing about this, apart from the fact that as a villain, Rafaam is pretty great all on his own, is that the one thing Rafaam is best known for in Hearthstone is resurrecting Galakrond in the Year of the Dragon expansion. So yeah, there's that. Then there's that clue that I am obsessed with from the Dragonflight cinematic trailer, when Stony Tony wakes up on the waking shore, the musical cue that accompanies the action is the instantly recognizable opening motif from Dragonblight, where Galakrond's skeleton is. Like, waking up and Dragonblight. Come on, sheeple, open your eyes, it's obvious. And then there's this text box from Scale Commander Emberthal on the alpha, which is one of those ones that lets us watch past cinematics in-game. And one of the cinematics listed is Dawn of the Aspects, a cinematic that doesn't currently exist, which suggests it's either going to be a Dragonflight in-game thing, or my guess, a pre-expansion animation like Warbringers, showing us the story of the Planeteers' fight against Galakrond and subsequent empowering by the Keepers. And why would they especially want to remind us of what happened with Galakrond, I wonder? Then there's the Primalists, a faction of proto-dragons who chose to reject everything that the aspects stand for and embrace their elemental powers instead, who are the main antagonists of Dragonflight's first raid and are thoroughly aligned with Galakrond. So it's a fair bet they'd like to see him resurrected too, you know? And don't forget, Ian did say we would have a fair idea of who the final boss of the expansion was at the end of 10.0, as in at the end of the first raid, which is against the Primalists, who would quite like to resurrect Galakrond. Basically, there is some very compelling evidence to suggest that Galakrond will be the big bad, and I rate his chances at 219 weird mutant dragon eyes out of Dragon Chad. If I had to put money on it right now, I would put all of the money on Cannibal Boy, and honestly, I predict Galakrond will be the final boss. But, you know what? There are some other very compelling candidates, like Chromatus. What is there not to love about Chromatus? 5 heads, each one representing a different Dragonflight. So powerful, it took the Dragon Aspect's powers combined to defeat him. Sounds familiar. And creepy enough to make even a dragon's scales crawl. Chromatus is a villain that can't help but capture the imagination. And up until now, that's pretty much where he's had to stay. He has yet to make an appearance in-game. A main antagonist from the Christie Golden novel Thrall, Twilight of the Aspects, Chromatus is the first successful chromatic dragon. Just like the Drakthir we'll soon all be playing as, these dragons are the result of an experiment conducted by the Black Dragonflight. In this case, by Deathwing's son, Nefarian, who attempted to combine the captured whelps of several flights into single chromatic dragons who would be able to wield the powers of all the dragons they were made from. Someone probably should have told him about the Drakthir. Most experiments were unable to survive until adulthood, a problem that was solved by Archbishop Benedictus, leader of the Twilight's Hammer cult, when he bypassed the whole growing up thing and just used an enormous amount of magic to breathe life into an already adult Chromatus. Like most things Twilight cult related, Chromatus' entire purpose was to bring about the Hour of Twilight, a time when the old gods would be freed from their prisons and end all life in Azeroth. A plan that may sound a little over the top homicidal to you or I, but as old god related plans go, pretty standard. The 4 remaining aspects decided to attack, but Chromatus is portrayed as incredibly powerful, and he just about wipes the floor with them. Ultimately, the aspects realize they cannot win until they combine all 5 aspect powers, which they can't really do because Deathwing is, trying to kill them all. Thankfully, Thrall is a super elite Jesus shaman, and he steps in with the powers of Earth. Chromatus is defeated, and he is very specifically not killed. His body turns out to be indestructible. Seriously, what is not to love about this guy? So they put him in an arcane prison instead, with the words "to play a role in the plot later" written on the door. And that is where his story seems to end. However, there are just the smallest hints that he was initially meant to appear as a boss in the Cataclysm raid Dragon Soul, instead being replaced by the single-headed dragon boss Ultraxion. Not only are the Twilight's Hammer cult present in this raid, but Ultraxion is found trapped in an arcane prison, just like Chromatus would be, and drops the chromatic dragon mount Experiment 12B. So there is plenty of speculation that Blizz meant this dragon to be Chromatus, but in the end wimped out of designing and animating a 5-headed boss fight. So maybe Dragonflight will be the expansion to make that old Cataclysm dream a reality. Overall, I expect 5-head might not quite be end of entire expansion boss material, and would rate his chances of 3 heads out of Chromatus. However, I do think it is basically 100% certain that at some point during Dragonflight, we will end up fighting this very, 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 very good boy, Murozond. Around the time of the Cataclysm, Nozdormu, the bronze dragon aspect, came across some rather upsetting information. In an attempt to learn more about the infinite Dragonflight, a flight devoted to destroying the very timelines the bronze Dragonflight is tasked with preserving, Nozdormu discovered that Murozond, the infinite Dragonflight's leader, Alpha was none other than a future, twisted version of Nozdormu himself, and that the Infinite Dragonflight itself was made up of former Bronze Dragons, working against everything the Bronze Dragonflight stands for. This realization upset Nozdormu so much that for a while he was trapped in the timelines and had to be rescued by Thrall. In what tends to be a theme with the dragon aspects, Murozond was, or will be, it's all very timey-wimey, tricked by the old gods into helping them shatter the time ways and bring about the Hour of Twilight. Now, technically, we have already faced and killed Murozond in the End of Time dungeon from Cataclysm. However, we still haven't seen Nozdormu turn into Murozond. And not because we have somehow changed the future or anything, because Steve Danusa confirmed in an interview with the For Azeroth podcast that's still definitely coming. Dragonflight seems like the ideal opportunity to see all of that play out, and red spoiler bot for this next bit, but the Alpha has already confirmed Murozond and the Infinite Dragonflight are back. In fact, they are the main subject of the revamped dungeon, Uldaman, Legacy of Tyr. In this dungeon, we encounter the Infinite Dragon Chrono Lord Deos, who has invaded the dungeon in order to destroy a special Titan disc, specifically because he believes this disc holds the secrets to the aspects regaining their power. Deos both succeeds and escapes, but not before leaving us with these intriguing final words. The timelines are converging. There will be only one aspect, and Murozond shall be infinite. And yet another clear indication that the Infinite Dragonflight are back to being major antagonists in Dragonflight is something that's currently known only as Grand Adventure Time. And while we don't know exactly what this is, several maps are associated with it, suggesting some sort of scenario-based activity like islands or warfronts, or possibly even the newest evolution of Torghast. These maps seem to depict important moments in history, suggesting a Caverns of Time-style romp through the timelines, as well as a future named the Primalist Tomorrow, where the Primalists have already won, and one other fascinating little map named Asmurloth, an alternative timeline version of Dragonblight where Murlocs clearly reign supreme. Basically, it's all kind of messed up, and whether Murozond and the Infinite Dragonflight turn out to be the final boss or not, it is certain we are going to see a fair amount of focus and perhaps resolution on this story thread, so I rate them an inevitable awesome tattoo out of Infinite.
Hey fam, I heard you like dragons. You do like dragons, don't you? Anyway, we are delighted to be working with Audible, who are sponsoring today's video. Okay, so I know in the last Audible spot, I told you that there are well over 4,000 results for dragons in the Audible catalog, which is incredible. But Evie, you cry, 4,000 plus results for dragons, where could I possibly begin? Tell me what to do, Evie. Okay, I will. If you want to experience some of my favorite depictions of dragons in any media, you can't go wrong with Ursula Le Guin. I mean, look at her. If there ever was an extremely ancient, all-powerful dragon in little old lady visage form, it's her. And lucky for you, you can listen to the entirety of her magnum opus, The Earthsea Cycle, all on Audible. Follow the journey of Ged, the greatest wizard of Earthsea, as he masters the words of power, ventures into the land of death, and yes, meets some hecking awesome dragons along the way. If you ever watched Talie's stream, then you know this is legit his favorite series of all time. If you watch our Patreon Q&As, then you know Le Guin is one of my favorite authors of all time. Honestly, if you only ever take one thing from Teeny, make it this. Listen to Earthsea on Audible. Audible also comes with tons of member benefits you might not know about, including 1 free credit for their premium collection every month and unlimited access to their new Plus catalog. If you want to venture beyond Earthsea, there's always new stuff being added to the catalog, so you'll never run out of interesting things to listen to. Not just audiobooks, but podcasts, original series, and other juicy content about dragons. Not all of it, but lots. Ready for some serious dragon content? You can try Audible free for 30 days. Just visit audible.com/TaliasinEvitel or text TaliasinEvitel to 500-500. It's free. There are dragons. Check it all out at audible.com/TaliasinEvitel or text TaliasinEvitel to 500-500.
Yasharaj. Hey, you remember BFA, where in hindsight, a lot of the groundwork for this expansion was laid out? What with us reaching out to the different dragonflights for help in the Chamber of the Heart, just to remind us who they all were, just in case that might be important later? Where we met Ysera's daughter, in charge of the Green Dragonflight now, just in case that might be information that would crop up a little bit in the future, who knows? Well, here is one of my favourite quests from the old Island Expedition rewards, the one that begun with a wriggling mass.
When you pick up the wriggling mass, it gives you a vision. In your mind's eye, you picture a many-eyed goat laying in a pool of black water. As you approach, its eyes burst open, and in an instant you find yourself looking upward at the goat from deep within the puddle. As you sink into the icy darkness, everything goes black. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Taliesin, that sounds an awful lot like that quote from the puzzle box of Yogg-Saron, which you've talked about before, because you bloody love the puzzle box of Yogg-Saron, and you're right, and I do. That quote goes, have you had the dream again? A black goat with 7 eyes that watches from the outside. Yeah, 7 eyes, like the 7 heads of Yasharaj, which is why most people think that the goat from the puzzle box refers to him. And in this new dream, the goat awakens as you draw near.
So here's the thing, 2 of the candidates we've looked at already in this video, Chromatus and Murozond, obviously shared one goal, to bring about the Hour of Twilight, where all life will be destroyed, the dragon aspects will be vanquished, and the old gods will rule Azeroth. But how can that future be at all possible if the old gods have already been defeated? Unless there is a way back. A way for the old gods to return once again, more powerful than before. You're going to think this is wild speculation, but bear with me. What if we are about to draw near the goat? Here's what we know about the first and most powerful old god, Yasharaj. Yasharaj was the most powerful and wicked of the old gods. I guess you could say he was quite literally the goat. When the Titan Armenthul decided to kill the old god himself, it sent shockwaves through Azeroth, nearly destroying the world, which is why the Titans never attempted it again. Yasharaj's body was ripped apart, and the remnants of his corpse scattered across the southern world, where the Titan Keeper Ra discovered them later. The largest of these parts was Yasharaj's heart, which Ra encased in a subterranean vault in Pandaria, only to be excavated by Garrosh Hellscream many hundreds of years later. And this has me wondering, do we know the full story here? When the existence of Pandaria was hinted at during the short story Charge of the Aspects, the line was, somewhere in the Great Sea was a mysterious island shrouded in mists. Of course, now you think that the island that passage refers to is Pandaria, but at the time, all the speculation was that the mysterious island would be the Dragon Isles, which we now know has also been shrouded in mists until very recently. But what if that isn't where the similarities between the Dragon Isles and Pandaria end? Don't forget, the Dragon Isles that we see in Dragonflight are very different to the original concept, which was intended to be included in Vanilla WoW, and was in fact partially built. The whole point of the Dragon Isles was always that it was chock full of old god temples, like R'lyeh in Lovecraft mythos. Obviously, in our shiny new 2022 expansion, there are no temples to be found, just Tuskar and centaurs and gnolls and tons of beautifully coloured dragons. Any old gods here? Nope, no old gods here. However, deep in the alpha files, there is a data entry with a dev note on it that says, warning, must be kept flagged development map until 10.1, suggesting that this is going to be a location in the first major patch of Dragonflight, and that map is called Dragon Isle Underground. So what we have here is the knowledge that the Dragon Isles was originally intended to be a location of many ancient old god temples, that it may very well still be the location of many ancient old god temples, and that there is apparently a lot of stuff going on under the Isles that we currently don't know about. What if another part of Yasharaj, a part even more powerful than his heart, whatever that would be, is buried beneath the Dragon Isles? And what if that is where we draw near now? A Yasharaj, or just general old god twist to the expansion, would also allow the Twilight Dragonflight to return, which would make sense since they were everywhere in BFA too. I may be biased because I love those tentacly old god overlords. I would rate Yasharaj as a not unlikely at all many eyes out of slightly more than that eyes wild card. Okay, so far in this video we have given you very solid and likely candidates, in my opinion, for the final boss of the expansion, but I think it's time for a wild card choice to finish off, and I thought long and hard about who this wildcard choice would be. First, I thought about Turalyon, who, with Alleria, is depicted in the Shadows Rising novel as going full-on sketchy torture mode in their hunt for Sylvanas, with Jaina being unsettled by the lengths to which the pair are willing to go, and thinking of him, "Oh, great lion, your heart is becoming steel." Turalyon really has come to represent a harsher side of the Alliance, one who is willing to do whatever it takes in the name of a cause, and oh yeah, who just happens to be sitting on the Stormwind throne in Anduin's absence, which is why the lines he has with Shaw at the beginning of Dragonflight might be worth a raised eyebrow or two, as he clearly does not trust the dragons and puts them under intense surveillance. The latest seeds in a baddie plotline? Maybe. But in the end, I decided that my wildcard choice would be Odyn, who, apart from being an absolute dick who everyone would like to take down, has some serious history with the dragons. As we mentioned before, when the Planeteers defeated Galakrond, the Titan Keepers decided that they should be granted special powers so that they could continue to serve as Azeroth's guardians. What we didn't mention, though, is that not all Titan Keepers agreed with the formation of the dragon aspects. Odyn was dead set against the idea, seeing the proto-dragons as far too primitive for such an important task. In fact, this disagreement directly inspired his idea to collect the souls of Vrykul warriors in the first place. His intention was to create an elite army that would be far better defenders of Azeroth than any old plebby dragon aspects ever could be. And if the dragon aspects seek to regain their powers in Dragonflight, it's probably a fair bet that Odyn still doesn't really like the idea. What's more, Helya, who for all her faults did happen to spend a lot of her time keeping Odyn's power in check, has recently been banished by the Primus. So while I'm not saying Odyn will unleash an elite Vrykul army that he's been building for hundreds of years on everyone he blames for defying him when they created the dragon aspects against his wishes, you know, because he's shown himself to be evil and petty when he feels like his will has been defied, I'm just saying he probably could if he wanted to, because he's an absolute dick that everyone would like to take down. I'm gonna rate Odyn 2 absolute dicks out of Helya, and there we have it. Our candidates for the final boss of Dragonflight. But what do you think of our choices? Are there any obvious ones that we've missed out? Has a new alpha build been released which changes everything we thought we knew and renders this entire video totally useless? It wouldn't surprise me. Let us know in the comments below. If you like this video, don't thank us, thank our patrons who give their actual real life money to make all of our work happen, and also special thanks to our friend and Wowhead contributor Discordian Kitty, who did a ton of research and writing on the script for this one too. We could not have made this video without her. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is Discordian Kitty. Oh no, that's not gonna work, is it? Fine, my name is Taliesin from me and Evertel and Anirin and Penny too. Until next time, cheerio.